I had made a video in the past regarding cities and why they're so broke, and I basically intimated that one of the reasons why is because of all the wrongful death settlements and police brutality settlements, etc. For all these millions and millions of dollars. It looks like St. Louis is on the board as far as the amount of money that they're paying out in these settlement cases. Here's a clip from the Roland Martin show illustrating that.
Folks, the St. Louis, Missouri Police Department has paid out $4.7 million in settlement money. The money was paid out in secret access, $44.7 million, due to various injuries of folks who have been killed, wrongful imprisonment by the department. 3 of the settlements were made even before prosecutors decided whether or not to file criminal charges against the officers. One of those cases was that of Kerry Ball. He was an honor roll student, shot 21 times by St. Louis police in 2013. Ball's family received a $400,000 settlement. There was no intent to investigate or prosecute the officers in that case. According to research done by the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, the police department has settled 44 such cases since 2010. Now, it's not unusual for cities to pay out settlements to families in these types of cases. We know in Cleveland, they agreed to pay Tamir Rice's family $6 million for a wrongful death lawsuit. Eric Garner's family received $5.9 million in New York City, and Baltimore agreed to a $6.4 million settlement for the death of Freddie Gray. But it is rare for the actual police department or the accused officers to pay out these settlements. That's what makes St. Louis unique in these particular cases. Joining us via Skype is attorney David Owens from the civil rights law firm of Lovey. His firm represented a family that received a $2.5 million settlement in the case involving St. Louis police. David, this is obviously extremely strange. And what I'm trying to understand, what are folks in St. Louis saying? What are taxpayers saying?
Well, I think that it is definitely strange, and I think that they're not saying much, but that's because they've been largely cut out of the conversation. That's been the point of the way in which the city of St. Louis has handled a number of these cases. So if you think about it the way you just mentioned it, Eric Garner was near $5 million. Tamir Rice at $6 million. The city of St. Louis, they said, oh man, we got a problem, and immediately paid these out for much, much lower amounts. And police departments don't pay unless they know something is wrong. But they tried to pay this money in order to keep the things from becoming public. Because once there's pressure, there's a requirement to actually give something that's compensable. And that's what happened in those other cases, and that's what they've tried to avoid. So I think the taxpayers don't know much about it, and that's by design.
All right, so their strategy was before the public becomes aware of wrongful deaths and brutality, they quickly get with whoever the family is or the person was that got brutalized, offer them a quick settlement, which they take instead of going fully public on the thing. So in effect, St. Louis has a strategy in order to reduce the amount of money they got to pay out for these wrongful actions.
One of the things that jumps out as I'm trying to understand here is that what are city officials saying? Because to sit here and immediately move for settlements with no investigation and no intent, that's just reckless use of taxpayer funds.
Well, actually, it sort of cuts the other way. Is the funds are probably being well used from a taxpayer perspective, but they're not being well used from a public perspective. And what that means is let's say and just what you described, an honor roll student shot 21 times, and he gets $400,000. Now, that's a lot of money, but it's probably not worth what he was really, how badly he was injured. And the reason they do this is to prevent taxpayers from being upset about knowing what's going on with the misconduct in their police department. which is systemic. And you would only do something like this if you acknowledged that the misconduct and the bad deeds were systemic, because you would know that you have a problem. And you would know that this is not just a one-off. You would know that it's going to happen again. And so that's what the taxpayers don't know. They don't know that their money is being paid out to fund systemic misconduct.
One of the things that also bothers me in these cases that is literally the silence. And when people say, well, it's all good, but when it's time to fund parks, when it's time to fund education, then you have all these battles going on, but they're quick to actually pay these settlements. Do you believe that one of the fundamental problems that we have in this country, whether it's St. Louis, Baltimore, Chicago, New York, is that as long as officers are let off the hook by taxpayers paying settlements, they're not going to suffer the consequences, losing their pension, losing their job, going to jail?
Yeah, and that's an important thing, is until there are actual consequences for police officers and for police departments, there will not be accountability. And that's what I was just getting at when, if it's systemic, then it needs to change. And it can't just change by saying there's one bad cop here, there's one bad cop there. It means there's a fundamental problem, and that officers shouldn't receive a pension. We had in our case, one of the officers had been federally convicted. One of the officers had been basically pushed out of the police department under a cloud of misconduct and allegations, and he still gets a pension. And in fact, not our case, but a different case is one of those secret settlements. $1 million to a guy who was wrongfully convicted. And he was innocent. And that guy framed him and framed my claim as well, but he still receives a pension. Wow, man. So we appreciate it. Thank you so very much. All right, thank you. I want to go to our panel here. Again, this is essentially what you have cops, they have free reign to do what they want to do. Beat folks, kill folks, and go. It's all good. City will pay for it. Taxpayers will pay for it.
Your point was great, Roland, because it's not a deterrent right now. So if and I don't think it's all cops. I've said this before. I think that these horrible cops that are doing these things, there's no deterrent to keep them from stopping because they can get away with it. We see it in Baltimore. This is strike 3. We're trying to get to a conviction. They're not being convicted, and so even if the crime or if the reward to the families is money, which they don't really want, they want justice. Justice is not being served, but also these police officers are not being held accountable. If I or the taxpayers, if we are paying for all these settlements, at the end of the day, they keep their pension and they can probably find another job. And so this continues to happen because there's nothing that's hurting them financially or their reputation or their employment.
Even them as an individual, what's interesting that your guest brought up is the fact that these are systemic problems that are based in the police department. And so it's easy for a lot of these officers to do these misconduct incidents, to use excessive force when they're arresting someone, or to, in the past case, actually frame someone else because there's a system in place that says what you do is okay, and if you do get caught, we'll pay out a settlement.
Well, there ought to be repercussions for bad conduct, such as the pension, such as losing your job. Really tough to convict police officers in the criminal justice system, rightfully or wrongfully. They're the only individuals who have a reason for engaging someone on the street and don't have the initial intent. They have a built-in defense of intent to say, I was there to assault or kill. I was there to arrest or do something under color of law. Secondly, I think we reduce the importance of the civil justice system. In many respects, these cases are best suited for preponderance of the evidence and civil settlements and civil justice because the standard is much lower. There is money to make the family whole, and if you have a negligence case or a medical malpractice case, money makes the family allegedly whole.
It's not going to change it.
But whose money is it?
It's taxpayers' money. But the issue in St. Louis is disclosure and paper trail, and that's what you don't have. That makes it unique also. There should be an investigation of those papers. All right, folks, so tight.
All right, so I've said for a while what they need to do is establish a national registry for peace officers, and you need to review that registry anytime you're attempting to hire someone into law enforcement, and if their record indicates that they have had a previous job and had to leave that job under a cloud, dubious circumstances, or actual misconduct, that they should not be allowed to be hired. The second thing they need to do is create a law that anytime there is a settlement payout and it's a payout based on officer misconduct, or decisions that an officer made that just weren't right, that number one, that officer needs to automatically be fired, and number two, that officer loses all benefits, any type of pension, etc. Those two things would deter a lot of police misconduct, in my opinion.